You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
This is Ghost Talk with 187 PI. Sit back and prepare yourselves for an adventure into the paranormal world with host Shelly Robertson and 187 PI research team. Ghost Talk is broadcasting live from Ohio's most haunted jail. Listen as they delve into the history of the old and haunted Paulding County Jail, where some of the residents still live within its walls. Learn about their ongoing research at the jail and abroad, investigation techniques, and their personal encounters. Here is your host of Ghost Talk and 187 PI founder, Shelly Robertson.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Ghost Talk Radio. I have a fantastic and interesting show planned for you tonight. I want to invite you all to join me in our interactive chat room at wbhm-db.com. This is where you can ask me any questions or tell me about some of your own experiences on tonight's topic. I am going to be telling everyone about ghostly tales of some of the most haunted cemeteries and some of the stories that made the legends come to life. I must mention, however, many of these places are real locations that one could go visit. And while many cemeteries are accessible during the day, many are not at night. So please get proper permissions before visiting any of these locations I mention on tonight's show, as trespassing can get you arrested and carry a hefty fine. So I guess let's just get started. There are so many reported haunted cemeteries all across the globe, and some people say cemeteries cannot be haunted. However, I personally beg to differ. One must consider various factors, such as, for example, let's take a look at just how old the land is. There may have been a settlement on the land prior to the cemetery being built, and it could have an attachment of someone way before the cemetery came to be. Now, I personally have found places that were haunted right out in the middle of nowhere and along roadways and fields and wooded areas that have no buildings on them at all. So I believe sometimes the land itself can be haunted for one reason or another. Maybe someone died and was buried, in a location and nobody knew about it prior to the cemetery being built. Or you could have someone who, let's say a loved one died and someone's still living, visited the cemetery on a regular basis. So who's to say this person isn't still in death visiting the grave of their loved one? Now, ghosts or spirits of deceased people are often attached to an item or a location or even a person who was very important to them while they were living. So to me, this makes some sense. Now, I do have a few cemeteries that I have found to be very haunted. I can say, however, during one such cemetery visit, my team and I were doing an EVP session, and we found that one of the ghosts from the jail did in fact follow us to the cemetery, which kind of validated for us that ghosts can follow you from one location to another. We found that quite amazing. Now, let's get into some of the most reported haunted cemeteries. For everyone listening tonight, I have included a photo album of these places, and they are posted on our Ghost Talk Radio Facebook page. Just go to Facebook, type in Ghost Talk Radio in your search feature, and we'll pop right up. You can click on the photos and browse the locations. Also, while you're there, click the like button so you can stay up to date with our shows. Now, while some people find cemeteries to be creepy or even scary, I personally do not. I rather enjoy visiting cemeteries and looking at some of the amazing ornate monuments and statues. For me, cemeteries are a peaceful and calming place. And I like to look at the different graves, and sometimes it comes to me maybe why they were even, died in the first place. So we're going to start off with a few from Ohio, that's my home state. The first one up is Lakeview Cemetery in Cleveland, Ohio. This cemetery is home to more than 100,000 graves, and it occupies 285 acres. Many notable individuals are buried here, including John D. Rockefeller, James A. Garfield, and Eliot Ness, who modernized Cleveland's police force, but he was unable to catch the infamous torso killer. That was a big case back in his time. Now, what I find really amazing in this particular cemetery is the Hasserat Angel. It's a very famous statue in this graveyard for its eerie representation of the angel of death victorious. Now, an interesting haunting that is associated with this cemetery is that it is the burial place of James Garfield, who was our 20th president of the United States. Okay, well, the story goes that he was fascinated with some of the paranormal himself, and he would regularly participate in seances to talk to his dead father while he was in office. Now, he even predicted his own death. He was shot by an insane madman in July 1881, and that was only 4 months after having been sworn in. Garfield was also reported to have identified the killer and the method of his murder beforehand. More puzzling to doctors back in his time was that after he was shot, he lingered for about 2.5 months before he passed on. And some say that Garfield's spirit had already left his body and started wandering. It has been reported that the wandering continues even to this day. Some say that he may even still visit with John Rockefeller. So I find that kind of amazing. Now, and I'll tell you what, the next one in Ohio is of Mount Union Pleasant Valley Cemetery. It is estimated that there are over 250 burials at Mount Pleasant Valley Cemetery. This is near Chillicothe. And most of the graves are from the early pioneers of Ross County, and at least 3 are even from the Revolutionary War, and 6 are from the War of 1812. Now, this is an off-the-beaten-path rural cemetery, and it's home to the infamous Elizabeth's grave, which supposedly her broken headstone moves itself from the front of the cemetery to the back of the cemetery. Elizabeth is said to haunt the cemetery because she hung herself from a tree in the area after her husband died, and she is likely unhappy when her visitors to the graveyard move her headstone. Some have even reported seeing Elizabeth near her gravesite, and others have reported seeing a ghostly woman hanging from a tree that's nearby and also walking among the stones. And they also report seeing 2 dark cloaked figures. So that is definitely one that I would like to check out. But of course, I would need permission since it is like a family cemetery now. There's another one in Dayton, Ohio. It's called Woodland Cemetery. Now, Woodland Cemetery is one of the oldest garden cemeteries in the United States, and it was founded in 1841. The cemetery grounds are comprised of 200 acres of rolling hills, trees, and 165 specimens of native Midwestern plants. Woodland is on the National Register of Historic Places, and its Victorian section received its own historic designation as a historic district in 2011. Now, this graveyard also serves as a resting place for several notable individuals, such as Orville and Wilbur Wright, and we all know who those are. And they close to the graveyard's entrance, this is really interesting. There is a distinct grave marker, and it's a statue of a little boy. And it's the grave of Johnny Morehouse. Now, according to legend, this monument is haunted by the little 5-year-old boy because he fell into the Miami Erie Canal and he froze to death. Now, his dog tried to pull him out of the Erie Canal at the time, but was unsuccessful. So after little Johnny was buried, the dog is said to have frequently visited and laid by Johnny's graveside. Now, consequently, when the faithful dog died, a special stone was then carved and added to the monument to commemorate the dog's devotion. Now, today, some people say they see Johnny and his dog wandering through the cemetery after hours, in the middle of the night. There have also been several reports that folks have seen a little girl sitting on top of a gravestone swinging her feet, and folks have reportedly said hello to her, and she has said hello back. And then all of a sudden, the little girl will hop off of the gravestone and take off running and just vanish, disappear. Some have seen her playing in the cemetery. That's quite amazing because they say that she looks pretty solid. And at first glance, they think she's real, but then she just vanishes. Up next, we have Spring Grove Cemetery, and this is in Cincinnati, Ohio. And Spring Grove Cemetery is the second largest cemetery in the United States. It was founded in 1845 by the Cincinnati Horticultural Society. It is comprised of 733 acres, but currently only 400 acres are landscaped and in use. It was renamed Spring Grove Cemetery in 1987. Many of the most notable figures from Cincinnati history are buried here. Now, some remain a bit restless in this scenic garden of paradise. It seems that the Norman Chapel, which is located just inside the main gates, it's rumored to be haunted. Designed in the Norman style by Cincinnati architecture Samuel Hannaford in 1879. Now, the chapel is complete with gargoyle guards along the top of it. Now, legend has it that cries can be heard coming from the chapel basement at night. There's a holding cell that was built in the basement during the late 1800s to jail people who were traveling too fast through the cemetery. Can you believe that? If you were going too fast through the cemetery, they would arrest you and put you in this cell under the chapel overnight. It's rumored that some of the people still remain there today. Now, the most eerie structure in this cemetery is the Dexter Mausoleum. It was built in 1869 as a private family mausoleum for whiskey baron Edmund Dexter. The mausoleum boasts the only two symmetrical flying buttresses in Cincinnati and was constructed to resemble a Gothic Revival funerary monument. Some say that the mausoleum is guarded by 2 white dogs. Now, legend has it that if you sit on the steps to this mausoleum, 2 white dogs will appear. They may run past you, they might stop and quietly watch you, or they might stop and growl. The strangest tale of this cemetery involves the grave marker of Charles Brewer. Brewer was an optometrist by trade, okay? And it is said that when he died in 1908, he supposedly requested that his eyes be removed and put in glass and then placed in the bronze bust likeness of himself